Hey, we're back. We're live. Happy Friday. Today I want to talk about color. More specifically, my system or my thesis. Because I notice I see a lot of presentations. We all do. We all see pitch decks and different presentations, maybe on Zoom, maybe in the office in the conference room. We all hire designers for things if we run a business, or like me, I have a designer on the team. And oftentimes color is something that needs to be communicated. And what I've noticed over the years, decades really, is that most people don't struggle with color specifically, maybe not the way they think. What they're really struggling with is the decision system. So you can leverage all kinds of patterns for or applications for getting color together. You can do canvas style. You can watch canvas style palette videos. You can have color wheel explainers. You can watch top 10 color tool fluff, whatever. Look, none of it helps you practically boots on the ground getting this stuff together, because a lot of these palettes, these tools that we use, they're, I want to say this nicely, it's like a swatch of RGB colors, or it's a big box with white and black on one side and then full saturation on the other side. And I like to think of it as the amount of light, or more so than saturation. But it doesn't matter if you know the names. It doesn't matter if you know the names of the different types of color palettes. It doesn't matter if you know the names of colors. And I'm not really going to cover those here. I have one quick thing I'm going to share with you about different color palettes specifically, just because it's helpful to know what you're building. But at the end of the day, color is hard because there are too many options, and there's no hierarchy inside of pretty much any system. And no system has sort of a way of showing or illustrating or mapping that for you. It's just an open color picker a lot of the time. If you're in Keynote, you've probably seen the color wheel with the saturation on the inside versus the outside, or the crayons. If you're in Google Docs or Sheets, or if you're in PowerPoint, you've seen their color picker thing with all the colors, and then you click it and it saves in the thing, and then you have colors you don't need. It's a mess, right? So too many options. There's no real hierarchy. There's no real system. And honestly, whether you're just a leader and you don't consider yourself a designer, you make the same mistakes as a junior designer, often just chasing something that's interesting. And that can work either through luck or experience, right? But if everything is intentional, nothing is. And that's why I think systematically about color. How does it expand? How does it play? How does it behave in and of itself, so that there's an understanding of how these things will anchor against each other, right? So primarily what I'll do is pick a neutral first. And I'm gonna share my screen here in just a second. I pick a neutral first, and then I want to look for an anchor color. And I have a system for doing that. I'm going to share that with you in just a second. Then I want to find an accent color. And then normally you're going to want to sort of, to reuse the word anchor, have a light and a dark sort of anchor color, so that you can create contrast, like overlay copy on dark, or dark color on a white background, because there's a utilitarian aspect to this. And so the thing about overlaying color, hey, let me just share my screen. Okay. Let me just do that right now. And go to this quick little whiteboard I put together for you here. So that's not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. Okay. So, okay, we got this. So what I'm looking at here is a few different types of palettes. And I've gone with patterns of 5, not just because Squarespace leverages 5. I often think of color systems in groups of 5. And the reason why I do that is, like I mentioned a moment ago, we need a bit of an anchor color, and the anchor color here may not be what you think. We need a neutral, and we need an accent color. Now in monochrome, this can be tough to do because you've got your very light blue, and this could be any gradient of colors from any side of the color wheel. These could be all greens, purples, reds, orange, whatever. So a monochrome palette is exactly what you think. It's total mono. They're all from the same color. They're just different levels of saturation or shades. So what we've got here is 5 sort of blues. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on monochrome. Now, analogous, with an analogous palette, what we've got is sort of groupings that pair well together here. And this is like the most common type of palette. You've got your anchor color here, which is going to be almost always this 4th color. Here, let me go to my tools and put a circle. Okay, so we've got this here, I would consider anchor color. This would be my dark. This would be my light. And then you've got your accent color and your neutral. Now, neutral doesn't have to be in the center. It can be off to the left one space. Complementary colors are usually opposite each other on the color wheel. So your anchor color is going to be oftentimes in complementary put in the middle, at least the way I build these systems. And this palette is going to be very rarely used. There are probably not a lot of brands that this would work for, but I wanted to show it because if you're picking opposites colors that are going to play nice with other colors that you've picked, that's kind of what you're doing. And then triadic, which is if you were to draw a triangle over the color wheel and spin it, you pick one color and then you get the others. It's kind of how that works. But the idea of this one is, and this is extraordinarily rare. That's my note. All right, so the idea of the triadic one, like I mentioned, is you've got color relations that cross triangularly across the color wheel. And this is an easy way to build a color palette of colors that are really bright and stand out from one another, but it still works if you were to reduce the saturation or the amount of light or increase the amount of light in order to build out a color palette. Triadic can be a very safe way to build a palette, but it is often going to be a very loud palette, and this is going to be a very noisy brand. Now, like I mentioned, I don't need this anymore. Here's a color palette, and this is just my color palette. I've got my light, I got my neutral, I got my anchor color, I've got my dark, and I've got my accenting color. And all of these colors play nice together. That's critically important to me, that there's no visible noise or motion. If you've ever seen red and blue bumped up against each other and they kind of vibrate, that's that kind of noise that can make it really difficult to leverage a color palette as a system. Every color should play nice up against each color. Now, that doesn't mean that every color should have great contrast when interacting with other colors. That's a different issue. You probably wouldn't put this blue as text on top of this dark blue, but you might do this gray in order to make a point or call something out. And you could definitely use the green over either of the blues and not get any noise. But primarily, this frosty off-white would be the one that was the one used for typography on top of a colorful background, or even pure white. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using pure white or black when needed, even if you decided on your color palette. But generally, I think of this color as replacing black in the design so that we are always using a system when it comes to how we pick these colors. Now, how do I pick these colors for a brand? And this is the way I want you to think about it. Okay. So there are industry common colors. Not every industry has them, but most industries do. The idea is, think of banks. They're almost always blue or green. Once in a while, you have one that wants to stand out, and it's orange. More on that in a second. A lot of retail establishments, like grocery stores, will use a lot of safe colors as well, blues and greens, because in Western culture, they depict trust or security or growth and all these buzzwords. But in general, an industry will usually have a pattern, a series of colors that are common across it. Not everything, like I don't think you could do that with sneaker brands, right? But you could certainly do it with major retail brands. Now, the brand may have a very specific competitive set, and they may all follow the industry common, or they may break the rules in their own special way. And this is important because of the third one, the brand. Understanding the brand, its goals, the people behind the brand in leadership, whether it's the owner or the director and VP levels, understanding their personality, the voice and tone of the brand and what it is they're trying to convey and achieve in market will help you understand how much risk you can take when you're departing from industry commons and the competitive set from a color standpoint. So if they're highly conservative folks, or if you're highly conservative and not willing to take big risks in market, and your industry is almost all blues and greens, probably a bad idea to show that brand a bunch of orange and yellow and pink, or some new age 80s theme with teal and yellow. We definitely want to follow the industry pattern and figure out a way to get their brand to communicate accurately or appropriately with those colors. Now, if they are action folks and they want to stand out and they don't want to be part of the crowd and they are not trying to copy competitors, they're really trying to be different, that's when you can introduce other color palettes like complementary or triad and really hammer home a color palette that's going to show that level of excitement and enthusiasm and differentiation in the market. So this is how I pick my sort of my anchor color, and oftentimes the neutral. So if I have an understanding of an industry, and like think of the AI industry right now, almost all those websites are black, and they use a bright green or a bright blue as an accent color, and they anchor on black, and it's also their dark color. Now, as a competitor, and you're entering that space, you may say, well, I want to be black too, because I want people to come to my website or see my marketing materials and my social content and feel like I'm categorically aligned, because there is instant recognition oftentimes when it comes to the colors that are being used in a brand. And that can be advantageous for a brand that's looking to grow. If it's a brand that's trying to set itself apart and be different, then you may go in another direction and say, we're not going to be black. We're going to have a white website. We're going to have a dark blue or a light blue, or we're going to have lime green background. We're going to have vibrating digital dots. You can do anything you want as long as it suits the brand and the message, the voice and tone, and everything they're trying to convey to their ideal customer model. So this is largely what I wanted to cover in here today, because I sit on a lot of presentations and I see, I'm going to stop sharing. I see people who don't consider themselves designers having picked a lot of primary colors and they'll pair them together and they make a lot of visual noise. Or I'll see people using stock imagery that doesn't fit a color theme, and I'm not judgy, so I don't really care if their deck is nice or not. I'm not the designer that looks at it and goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe they picked Courier or Caledonia or Comic Sans. I don't care. That's not my place until they say something like design is important to them. Then it becomes it raises my awareness to say, hey, if design is important to them, they just don't understand how the system of building colors works. And it expands into typography and the other principles and the principles of design. But in general, I hope this was helpful. I hope you build better color palettes that are powerful and really serve the brands that you're working with, or your brand. If you have questions, drop a note, or a question in the comments. Like, hit me up. Please subscribe, get some more of these live ones. I don't always do these tactical things, but it's a new year, it's a new me, trying to expand. So anyway, thank you for watching. You made it 16 minutes. That's not nothing. That's pretty cool. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and a great week next week, and I will see you here next Friday.